Music, kicking off a brand new week, and joining us now to get the show started is Dawn McVea. She's the Small Business Director, I should say, of Mississippi and Louisiana for the National Federation of Independent Small Business. Dawn, good to see you again.
Hey, good morning. Glad to be on.
You bet. So, it seems to be the buzz on everybody's mind these days, and that is the price of gas and inflation and employment and hiring and all of these economic concerns. What are you hearing from your members?
Well, it's just getting frustrating. We have continued to see a rise in gas prices. They start to decline, and then you see it go back up, and inflation just isn't easing at all. So it's really frustrating for our folks. They're reporting that they're having to raise their wages. I think last time we spoke, they were doing that, and unfortunately, it hasn't let up. Usually, if they have to do something to raise prices, it's not a good scenario to start with. So then, whenever they can't even get a break on the back end of, okay, they're raising prices, but they're still experiencing inflation, it's just hard to make the bottom line work.
Yeah. Well, what about just the constraint of labor that has been, it seems like that's been the top issue for the last year, but now that seems to have eased a bit. And,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
We're seeing that their labor force is continuing, participation is continuing to rise, which is really positive.
Yeah.
Lower unemployment rates, you're seeing labor participation come up, and that will help long run with the ability for small business owners to get back to running their businesses instead of doing the jobs in their businesses.
Yeah. Well, so we went from this period where everybody was just screaming for labor. And there's still a constrained issue, it seems like. There's obviously more jobs available than there are people that want to work, and we still see a lot of job postings and now hiring signs and so forth. Although some of the big tech out in Silicon Valley are starting to shed some of their labor, I think in anticipation of a slowdown in the economy. But you indicated right off the bat that inflation seems to be in just the cost of inputs. And, of course, when you're hiring people in a constrained labor environment, the employees kind of have an upper hand there, and that causes the employers to often have to raise their pay just to be competitive and to get labor. But here's the question for you. That is a little bit of a background. What are you hearing from your members as far as those who are just absorbing these higher input costs and those who do have some discretion in their pricing and they're able to pass that on to consumers?
Yeah, you see a lot of the construction industry is a great example. We're hearing from them that they are raising their prices. 80% of them are telling us they're raising their prices. So that's the construction industry. They have to pass that along, right? So you see those higher numbers. In retail, you get a little bit different response. Folks are economies of scale, basically, depending on what they're selling, they have the ability to be flexible. So you'll continue, I think, to see that the impact of inflation, especially in the restaurant industry, retail, but they can only, like you said, absorb so much. So think about your everyday dry cleaner who has a delivery service. At what point, if they're delivering, the price of gas, the price of doing the cleaning, what are they really getting out of it on the back end, and paying their employees? So you have a lot of folks that are really small employers who are having to revamp, look at what makes sense for their business model at this point.
Are you hearing any reports from especially restaurants, establishments that cater to folks eating out, they're saying, people aren't coming in as much anymore because they're trying to limit their driving so as to limit their expense of gas?
Not a ton. You still see owners reporting that the consumers are coming in. They haven't seen a huge slowdown in foot traffic in business. So that's positive from what we're hearing on the ground from our members. But I think it'll be interesting to see as the summer goes on if that kind of changes.
Yeah, I heard reports anecdotally from friends talking about the coastal areas, which, of course, draw a lot of vacationers this time of year, saying it's just packed. And I wonder if that's just because people kind of ignored the fact that the price of gas and everything else has increased dramatically, and they just had it in their minds, I've been locked up, I've been planning on this, I'm going to get out and go ahead and splurge here and spend that money and enjoy the vacation. But then after that, say, okay, I got to start cutting back. I wonder if that's on the horizon. And I guess the question would be, from your membership's perspective, what's their sentiments in terms of the remainder of the year? What do they feel like is in store for them?
Well, our optimism has remained at an all-time low. 50%, a net negative 50% of our members feel that things will improve. So that should tell you exactly how they feel about it. Yeah,
okay.
It's a 48-year high. Low, I guess, technically.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
We are really disappointed to see that kind of continuing. It has not improved. And that's kind of what we ask them is, what do you see the next 6 months looking like? So.
Wow. What are they asking for from a policy perspective? Is there anything in particular that the organization, NFIB, is really pushing to get through at either the state level or the federal level?
Yeah, I think you see, after the legislative session, we talked about, the income tax cut there in Mississippi, and we are hopeful to see what that does to the economy there locally after the first of the year, and people knowing that a tax cut they'll see that on their bottom line, and that'll help on the planning side. At the national level, we're, pushing the do no harm. We are fortunate in Mississippi to have a very pro-business legislature and governor, and we're lucky to have them. But in Congress, there's a mixed bag up there. And whenever they talk about tax increases, they talk about new opportunities to sue employers, new opportunities to have frivolous lawsuits that are really a big problem for small businesses. We've talked about before that having a lawyer up and having to deal with that, and there's a few different things, different wage and hour theft issues, that bills that are being promoted by the far left that would really be detrimental to small business. So we're hopeful that they won't pass those and put small business owners in a box on that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I totally agree. It's hard enough to make ends meet and produce a profit in a small business without having to constantly worry about what else is the government going to drop on me I got to deal with, because even if you can deal with it, it still costs money to accommodate all these rules and regulations and so forth. It still costs money to deal with it, and I think that sometimes gets overlooked. What about health care premiums? We just got through talking about that as a possible news item here in the network, in the SuperTalk network, in our planning session this morning. What are you hearing from your members there? I mean, all the insurers are warning everybody premiums are going up. They're already high. They're already crazy.
It's been frustrating for the past several years for small business owners to deal with the cost of health care. Since the ACA was passed, several members had to report it having to cut off health benefits that they were offering to their employees because of the impacts of that. And it hasn't eased up. It just hasn't let up. The cost of healthcare continues to rise, and the cost of insurance premiums continues to rise. And so that's where, for small business owners, if they're looking to be competitive and they're trying to offer a package to their employees, they need to be able to have the opportunity to offer health benefits to be able to compete with the bigger guys, right? So it's such a complicated problem, and
it is.
We don't know what the answer is, but we need some relief on the healthcare front for sure.
Yeah. Dawn, always a pleasure talking to you. Appreciate you joining us here on Middays, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Don McVea, National Federation of Independent Small Businesses. Don serves as the director for Mississippi and Louisiana. We'll take a break right here on Middays. We'll come right back to the Element Wealth studio.